I'm Alex Seay with Bird Law Group. I'm Alex Seay with Bird Law Group, and this is the first episode of Bird's Eye View, a new vlogcast that we're doing here at the firm to bring other lawyers in the community in to speak with them, to grow relationships, and really just to have some fun. And today, here with us, we have Bell Wilson Law. We have Peyton and Matthew. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Alex, so good to be with you.
I'm so glad you guys are here.
On the first episode. So I think that means we're VIPs, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we've known each other since law school, so who better than to have on here than old friends?
That's right. So I'm Matthew Wilson, and this is Peyton Bell, and we just started our new firm, Bell Wilson Law. Peyton, you want to tell them about our new firm?
Yeah, so my name is Peyton Bell. Matthew and I just started our new firm, Bell Wilson Law. Before that, I actually leased space from Alex and Bird Law Group for the first 2 years that I launched my own law firm. And being on this podcast is really a fun way to bring all of my worlds together. The first firm I worked at during law school, I was a summer associate with Alex at Bird Law Group.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And then when I graduated from law school, I didn't have a job, and I called Alex and I was like, hey, can y'all help me out? And she got me a contract position at Bird Law Group that I did for like 4 or 5 months before went and worked at a couple different firms over the course of several years. And when I started my own firm, I was like, hey, I want to come back and work around in this space with y'all. And so worked here for 2 years out of this office before Matthew and I started our own firm.
Came home to Bird Law Group, and then Matthew stole him.
He flew the coop.
He did. I'm so glad that you guys are here today, though. So instead of jumping right into serious content, I wanted to start with something that maybe is a little more fun. So what is your favorite wing place in Atlanta?
So I actually just learned that Matthew's a pescatarian except for chicken wings.
Well, here's the thing, okay? Because I'm a pescatarian, which means I only eat fish. I don't eat any other meat. But I haven't always been a pescatarian, and chicken wings are my weakness. So whenever my husband has chicken wings for dinner, I do steal a few of them, but we like to call those salmon wings. They're not technically chicken wings.
Oh, then that way you're still a pescatarian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you live in Atlanta. You have to eat wings, right? I think that's like a given, isn't it?
And then throw them on the ground, right?
And then take a photo of it and post it on social media.
That's right.
If you don't do that, then you don't live in Atlanta. Yeah. So where's the favorite place to get salmon wings or chicken wings for you guys in Atlanta?
Yeah, I don't really understand this salmon wing concept, so I'm going to ignore that. The top places for chicken wings are J.R. Cricket's has really great lemon pepper wings. And then there's a couple different places around town that smoke their wings really nicely. So Fox Brothers makes really good chicken wings, and they smoke them and then I think they flash fry them, and that really brings out you get this like nice little smoky flavor in the wing and moisture in the actual meat of it, but it's a little crispy on the outside, so that's
I feel like some of your culinary maybe nerdiness is coming out here. You're a Traeger guy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is your. I can't smoke food. The best smoked food is food that someone else smokes for me, because it does not come out well. But I'll have to try Fox Brothers. I don't think I've ever had their wings.
Yeah, very, very, very good chicken wings.
What about you, Matthew?
Whatever's on Robert's plate.
Fair enough. So speaking of Atlanta, one of the news stories I saw recently kind of touches on law that I think you guys do a lot of. I saw that the racetrack on Piedmont was closing down after a 21-year-old was killed on their property. What did you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think of personal injury firms, and you think of your automobile crashes, your slip and falls. But most people don't think about premises liability cases if you don't practice them on a regular basis. But those landlords and owners have a duty to and a responsibility to keep their premises safe. And unfortunately, this place was known for not doing that. But Peyton's got a lot of experience on premises liability cases.
Yeah, and when I think of that, so that racetrack is actually just a couple blocks south of our office, and when I think it's a good thing if a business like that closes, because we have these crime issues that come up in society, and there's two ways that crime is really addressed through the legal system. Most people are aware of the criminal aspect of it, where the police or whoever arrests the actual person who commits a crime. But that doesn't really have a lot of success in preventing future crimes. Other people commit crimes all the time. What we do is we apply the Georgia law that requires commercial property owners who make money by operating businesses on properties, and they know that one of the costs associated with their business is that violent conduct, crimes, will happen on their properties. And if they know that that is a cost to the operation of their property that they're making money on, and they do nothing to prevent it, well, then they're passing that cost on to their customers and the general public. Mm-hmm. And that's where we come in. And when a murder or a shooting or someone is injured on a property through no fault of their own, we look at who's responsible. Well, obviously, a person who actually pulls the trigger has some level of responsibility for what happened. But the property owner or the manager who has known for years that there is this pattern of violent conduct happening in and around this space, and has the capability of taking basic steps, adding a security guard, adding a security camera. I mean, these are industry standard practices. And when they decide not to do them, just to save $100 a month or $500 a month or $1,000 a month, it costs people's lives.
And a lot of times the customers and the people in the community assume that the property owner is taking those steps, that they have security cameras there, because
right.
Most people in Atlanta have at least one camera on their house at home.
Right. Everybody's got a doorbell camera, right?
Everybody's got a doorbell camera. That's an easy thing, but a lot of times in these hotspot places, you find out they've done nothing for years and years, and so it just attracts this element that makes the overall community much more dangerous.
And they know about it.
Yeah.
Right. And do you find that in those types of cases, when you start investigating and you're looking for security cameras or prior crimes, that they do in fact know that they aren't protecting against things that are foreseeable or crimes that are going to happen again because they've happened in the past?
Yeah, I've handled several of these cases, and there's kind of a pattern to them. And the pattern is that I ask in discovery for them to produce documents and budgets and information relating to security. And every single time, the response is, we do not have that. We don't know what you're asking for. So then I have to dig a little deeper, and I have to send them letters asking for it, specifying. I mean, they'll say that they've never had an evaluation of the property made. Well, I can't sell my house, my personal residence, without a due diligence report. And these commercial properties are selling for millions of dollars, and they're claiming that no one ever made an assessment about violence or crime in the neighborhood, which is just absurd. And it's never true.
Right.
And I always have to fight them, and I have to go to a judge, and I have to get a motion to compel heard by a judge, granted, sometimes sanctions. And then lo and behold, we end up getting budgets for the property. We end up getting due diligence reports. A lot of information that shows that they knew that violent crime was going to happen on their property.
Do you all, from your experience with premises liability cases, what advice would you give a commercial property owner as far as what they should be doing, the steps they should be taking to protect the public?
I mean, I feel like you can just boil it down to be a good neighbor.
Fair.
You know, be a place of business that is thinking about the overall community. You know, you should know the other tenants, and if you're in a residential area, the other residents that are nearby. You should have a relationship with them, and they'll let you know very quick what you are or not doing to protect the community. But just be a good neighbor, and if you see something is, you know, a bad element on your property, you need to take steps to address that. And that doesn't necessarily mean you got to spend half of your budget to address that, but you've got to do just small things will address those very big problems. And if you do it on the front end, then it doesn't aggregate and become a much bigger problem later on down the road.
That makes a lot of sense.
There are also industry accepted policies and procedures for these properties. I get asked a lot of times during depositions, or the other side will say, well, what did you expect us to do? Well, it's not my job to go through and figure out what each property is supposed to be doing to make it safe. There are national organizations for apartment complex management and for convenience store management, and they actually have best practices. They have training. They have national standards and guides on how to keep properties safe. And so establishing good, appropriate policies and procedures and then following them. And that will help them on the back end, because if something does happen at their property and they were taking steps to prevent it and something happened anyway, well, you know, then that's a sad situation. But if they fail to do anything to prevent it from happening, well, then that's their fault.
Right. And that's where a firm like Bell Wilson would come in and help that person get justice for what happened.
I have a question for you, Alex. So y'all do mostly medical malpractice, and you know, I think that there would be something similar in that world. Like, what do you do when doctors or hospitals push back and ask you to explain, like, well, what would you have had us do?
That, you know, it's interesting, and I think I would go to a similar set of guidelines that are in the medical community, right? Called the standard of care, and it's developed and understood by doctors who practice in the same area as what's involved in the case that I'm looking at. There are hospital policies and procedures, but a lot of times, just like the defendants in these premises cases, we have hospitals who come back to us when we ask for the relevant policies and procedures and say, well, which ones do you want? Well, how am I supposed to know what your policies and procedures are, right? So we usually end up having to get a table of contents from the hospital or the physician's office and go through and find the relevant ones. And we find, unfortunately, that the policies may be there on paper, but they're not being followed in practice. And that's where mistakes happen. Bad things happen to patients, and where we come in is when those bad things or bad results were avoidable. And sometimes they were avoidable by just simply following the policy that was already written down. So I guess it's a common thread amongst some of our cases, right? We have these standards out there, but people aren't following them. Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that we started doing this vlogcast is to talk to other lawyers, have a little fun at the same time. But, you know, a lot of people out there don't know that there are industry standards for commercial property owners, that there are policies and procedures that physicians should be following. And I think it's important for the public to know, because something could happen and, you know, a person could get injured or even worse, killed, but the family or the injured person doesn't know that there was something out there that made it avoidable.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people look at these types of cases and at first they'll say, like, well, it's ultimate, it's not their fault, or it was just an accident. And what people need to realize is there is a difference between what is required to do at someone's home or their residence, or, you know, and what is required to do at a profit-making business.
Right. You open your doors to the public. The public has a right to assume that when they enter your property, at your invitation, they're safe.
Right.
Right.
And if they're not, and if the businesses aren't doing what they need to do, which are basic steps that don't cost a lot, it just takes a little bit of thought and execution. And if they're not doing that, then they're passing along the cost. I think the economic term for it is they're passing on negative externalities onto the public. And so instead of the business itself paying for this true cost, they're passing it along to the public, which is resulting in lifelong injuries, deaths that are unnecessary. So a tremendously greater cost is being passed on to individuals and society than if a couple $100 a month is spent to execute a very basic procedure for safety.
I think you can get like a Ring camera and Arlo on Amazon for less than $100, right? And it just puts the video in the cloud. So
it's also fun when you get to see, and I don't know how much you get to see this in the medical malpractice cases, but it's fun in the premises cases it feels good when you see a change in the way that a property is done. So I've done several curb ramp cases where a property owner has a handicap curb ramp, and a couple of them, they have not complied with ADA standards or building codes, and people have been injured. Whether in one case, a woman was in a wheelchair and she went down a curb ramp that was not to code. She fell out and she went from being wheelchair bound to being bedridden.
Wow.
Both of her femurs broke. And, they said that they didn't do anything wrong, but by the time that case was over, they had a brand new curb ramp on their property that I saw. And that, you better believe that new curb ramp was compliant with ADA standards.
Yeah. I like to think in some of our medical cases where, we find that the policies and procedures weren't followed, that just by virtue of going through the litigation, hopefully, right? And sometimes we try to make this a piece of the settlement or the resolution, but hopefully they are going back and looking through their procedures and saying, okay, from an administrative perspective, what can we do to make sure these policies are executed and this doesn't happen to someone else, right?
Right.
A lot of times that's what my clients and the families are really driving for, right? They're angry that it happened in the first place. Money isn't going to undo the harm or bring the person back. So another step beyond that is, well, what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen to someone else? And, I think talking about it in forums like this is helpful so that more people know and can learn and hear about these different policies and standards and what can be done. But also just continuing to fight for our clients, right?
That's right.
From a personal perspective, let's talk firm ownership, right? I mean, all of us have been on that road for the last, I think, Matthew, you were probably the first one out of the three of us, right?
2019,
Yeah.
I started my solo practice.
Yeah. So what's that been like? How's that been different, working for yourself and now having a law partner?
Yeah, it's, I always intended to have a law partner. I didn't always want to have a solo practice because it was just very stressful. But when I was elected to the legislature, I basically had 2 full-time jobs, and having a solo practice gave me the flexibility to be able to do the political job and still practice law. Now that I'm not in the legislature, my focus is growing my practice. So Peyton and I have been working together on cases the last year and a half or so, and it was just sort of a natural fit for us to merge our practices together. But it's really nice having a true partner that you can rely on and who can push you in ways you need to be pushed, and sort of balances out my strengths and weaknesses. It's nice to be able to feel like you're not carrying the entire brunt of it.
No, I understand that. When I started my firm in 2020, or assumed the firm in 2020, it was just me for a minute, and that was terrifying.
Well, especially
right?
when you have people on payroll that are depending on you to bring in the business to sustain the entire business.
Right.
It was just me at my solo practice. It was a true solo practice. So I can't even imagine the pressure of that.
But it took about 2 months before I just said, okay, uncle, and made it a priority to go find, another lawyer. And I'm really lucky that I did find Rishi, because then not even a year later, I was pregnant. And what would I have done, in that situation, had I not had someone to, like my team and Rishi, to pick it up for me, it was a whirlwind. It's been a whirlwind the last 4 years, if I'm being honest with you. Taking over the firm, having a baby, getting married, buying a house. I like to say I just did it all at once. So, but I couldn't have done it without Rishi. So
Multiple Band-Aids being ripped off.
Oh, absolutely. If you're going to do it, just rip them all off at the same time, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and the kids are real helpful in
yes, they are.
the practice of law.
They are.
They really understand. And actually, I do think that they make it my kids help me break off from work.
Yeah.
Because when I'm picking them up, I have to leave the office. I have to leave the office by 5 to get them, because I got to fight through Midtown to get one kid and then head over to the elementary school to get the other. And I find it to be really helpful for me, because when I'm with them, I cannot think about the law firm and the law practice.
Right.
And it's really helpful for me it's a healthy way for me to get out of my head space. Get them home. I go through a very standard routine with them. They're 3 and 5, so it's dinner, bath, book, bed, bath, book, bed. You're right. It's like get one down, do the other, and then it's like 8:30, and I'm usually in bed by 9. But I wake up at 5:30, 5:45. Get a little bit done before they get up, take them to school, and then I'm at my office by 8. And
I don't think I've seen 5:30 on the clock in a long time, at least not on purpose.
No.
But my daughter is in this, I was almost late today because she's in this new three-nager stage. It's not even 3 yet, but this is the only thing I can think to call it from like the mommy posts and books. But she wants to sleep in now. And if I go wake her up before she's ready to get up, you best be ready to deal with the Kraken. Like no, mommy, you can't change my diaper. No, mommy, I'm not putting my clothes on. I don't want those shoes. It was a whole thing this morning. And it took my husband and I both together to get her out the door and just to get me here by 10 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
Because she wants to sleep in.
Just to verify that Alex is telling the truth, she texted me this morning and wrote that she was running a little late, and she wrote, apparently being a three-nager also means liking to sleep in. And if you wake the Kraken early, there's hell to pay. So
I was dead serious. I was feeling it in that moment when I texted you.
You guys are not selling childhood on me right now.
Sorry. It has its, you see all the wonderful pictures I put on social media. I don't put the Kraken stuff on social media. Yeah. So it has it has really great times too. So I don't mean to make it sound like it's all stressful and Kraken oriented.
But I feel like people in our generation with kids and practicing law, we take off more time for kids stuff than attorneys did for years before, and I think that a lot of people are very I mean, I don't really care sometimes if people aren't, but I think people generally are pretty supportive and okay with that. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, our generation, there's been this surge of wellness, right? Mm-hmm. And awareness, especially in our community as lawyers too, and not just taking time for your kids or taking time for your spouse or your family, but the work-life balance conversation has been coming up a lot, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you guys do to make that happen?
Oh, this is a constant conversation in my household because my husband's also a lawyer, as y'all know. He works for a big law firm, and so early in our marriage, I used to refer to it as a throuple. It was me, him, and his laptop.
Right.
I kid him a lot about it, but he's actually really good about taking time, figuring out when he can squeeze time in to take the dog for a walk, before he has to get log back online and get some more work done at night. But we don't have children in our household, so it's just the two of us. So if there's work that needs to be done, we'll do work at home. So many nights we're working after dinner, but we're working on that because it's it's just not healthy. Nobody can just work all the time. It's just really not healthy.
No, burnout's a real thing.
It
right?
is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got closer to it at my house when we both started our businesses. My husband owns his own business too, and both of us sort of launched out at the same time, right? Rip all the Band-Aids off sort of thing. I guess that's maybe a mantra of mine at this point. But we found ourselves just working around the clock and not making time for each other.
Yeah.
And even with Everly, we have to still make time for each other, right? And she wants to dominate a lot of the time,
right.
Which is fine.
Is she 3 now?
Not yet, but she very much, if you Google 3-nager, her photo might be there.
Is that a term, 3-nager?
I've never heard that before.
I mean,
I was told it was the term. It describes her perfectly because she's like 3 going on 17.
I thought it was the terrible 2s, and then the 3s are supposed to be like delightful.
Not a word I would use.
Okay.
No, not yet.
All right.
Not yet. No.
Did
you not have 3-nager stage?
They're stronger by 3. They're stronger, and their
will to
they
fight
have more
is stronger.
opinions.
Yes.
And
she told me to shut up in the car this morning.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was a new one. We don't say that, so I don't know where she got it.
What sort of policies and procedures do you set up for her?
We probably need to write them down. I don't know.
Well, I do know that kids can pick up the strangest things from the most random places because Robert's niece, when she was 3, came home from daycare one day and then just out of the blue told her parents, "I'm gonna take a lunch," and walked out of the room. We're like, do you even understand what that is?
Dude,
it's dinner time. What are you talking about? And you don't miss a meal.
No,
so what are you talking about?
I'm taking a lunch.
I'm taking a lunch.
I like that. If I'm in a stressful situation I want to get out of, I'm just like, I'm taking a lunch.
I'm taking a lunch.
Yeah. No, Everly's, I don't know where she got shut up, but she had her baby doll in the car seat this morning in the back seat. And as we're pulling out of the garage, I usually talk to her. I'm like, okay, baby, let's go to school. You ready for your day? And she goes, shut up, mommy. I was like, I'm sorry. I stopped the car in the driveway. I was like, what did you just say? Shut up. Where did you learn that? Shut up. Over and over again until finally the conversation turned to, we don't say that to people, especially not mommy.
That's right.
That's not nice.
That's not nice.
That's not nice. But it's, I have to fight my urge to laugh when she comes out with crazy stuff like that. Because I don't want to encourage it. But It's pretty funny to hear a 2.5-year-old in the backseat telling you to shut up. At least right now. It will be later.
You're just raising a strong, independent-minded young lady.
I don't know where she gets it.
Maybe Peyton can close with a joke. He looks like he has one.
Oh, Peyton always has a joke up his sleeve somewhere, I feel like.
I'm sure he's got a long litany of dad jokes.
That's why it's one of the many reasons I miss him being in the office. There was always some lightheartedness or something funny, whether it's he's like going down the hall spilling his coffee on the way and we're all making fun of him, or he comes in with some sort of joke in the morning or a story about Orange Theory. I miss it.
Sore subject right now.
I know,
Sore subject
quite
right
literally.
Now. What's your best dad joke?
I don't really have any jokes. I'm not a funny person, and
well, that's a big joke.
Don't think that people should laugh in the workplace.
It's all
or
business.
on serious podcasts.
It's all
vlogcasts.
Vlogcast.
Because
we've got all these cameras.
Don't get me started. A vlog.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a New York Times word.
What is?
Vlog. It was on. I used it for a New York Times word puzzle the other day. So it's an actual word now.
It is.
Dad joke.
I don't have a dad joke.
Oh, okay. All right. Next time.
I'll think about one.
Okay. I really appreciate you guys being here today, talking about law, life, opening up, sharing stories, letting the community know about what we do, what you guys do. So thanks so much.
No, thank you, Alex. And it's really a privilege for us to be on the first Bird's Eye vlogcast as we're starting our new firm. And especially because Alex, we've known you for so long and been able to work together on cases. But this is an exciting new venture for you as we're starting our new venture as well.
Yeah, that's super great. We're very thankful to be here. Like, we're really in the process of launching our firm, Bell Wilson Law, and where we're going to be focusing on helping clients who've been seriously injured in a variety of different ways. And I think if we have a common theme of the types of cases that we want to be handling, it's where people have been seriously injured and we want to find out why. And we want to find out who's responsible, whether that's in a trucking collision, an auto case, a product liability case, a medical malpractice case, or a premises liability case. We really want we want clients who are coming to us that have been seriously injured, and then put it on us to figure out what happened to them and who was responsible, because a lot of times they don't even know.
Well, don't be taking all my med mal cases now. Hopefully, if you guys do get some of those, we can work on them together.
Co-counsel.
Okay.
Co-counsel.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for the first edition of Bird's Eye View. We hope that you guys enjoyed it, and there will be more to come. If anyone out there wants to come on and chat about law, life, let's stay connected. Keep the conversation going. Follow us online, Bird Law Group, and make sure you check out Bell Wilson and their new website that's about to launch.